universal in place and time. Now there's a 20th item on the list which I've left off, but it's here anyway. The missing item. Do what you know. I would say don't do what you know. Keep your eyes open, but be like a meerkat, you know, looking around everywhere, looking around for the next opportunity. Don't just restrict yourself to what you know, because you might be gardening, you might be riding a bicycle, you might be, I don't know, in a tailor shop. Anyway, you might suddenly have an idea that you know nothing about the field, but then you can learn, can't you? You can soon learn. So I would say don't restrict yourself to ideas in the areas that you think, well, this is the area I know. Why do that? So that's the PW19, and as I say, handouts there, take that list away, because that might help you avoid making a daft mistake. So I've told you about failures. I've told you about my antidote to failure, I hope, which is the PW19. I've mentioned the DIY market, and I maybe just clarified. I did say to you that I was worried about showing off my product because it seems to be hot property, and I'm just very concerned to just throw the details out. I do have the community design and a paint application for that night, but the fact of the matter is that once you have highlighted a niche in a certain market, there's more than one way to skin a cat, isn't there? So people could quite legitimately and legally think, well, that's good, oh, I didn't know they needed those things, oh, well, I'll make my own, you see. So I don't really want that to happen. Reluctantly, I've left it at home. But I'm still quite happy to talk the reasons why I chose DIY, because I was decorating my father's house. I think that's the other aspect, that ideas come from writing lists, but they also come from doing work. You know, you could be cleaning the windows here, you could be scrubbing the floors, and you might come up with a fantastic idea for a new cleaning machine. In fact, I've got one, but I'm not doing it for reasons. It's not typically as cheap to do as the one I'm doing at the moment. That's the only reason I'm not doing it. But, you know, if you're working, doing humdrum jobs like cleaning the car, you may come up with an idea. If you're weeding the garden and you're fed up because every time you pull on the weed it snaps, doesn't it? That's what happens with weeds. You pull on the weed and it snaps, doesn't it? And the root stays in, doesn't it? Well, what if you had something to sort of scoop the root? I don't know. I'm not trying to invent anything, but just think that. All around us there are ideas. All around us there are possibilities for new ideas. Millions of them. I think it was a patent officer in the year 1901 or something. He said in an article in a newspaper, he said, well, it looks like now everything that's going to be invented has been invented. That was 110 years ago. So, you know, ridiculous. There's never going to be any end to inventing. It is up to you. When you're going around, doing jobs, maybe in the office, maybe on the telephone, or I wish I had something I'd stick the telephone on, you know, I don't know what it is, anything. I wish I had a so-and-so. Whatever you think you wish you had, write it down. But that's what happened to me when I was decorating. I found that I was frustrated doing certain jobs, and I wished I had a certain tool for it, but there was nothing available. So, over a period of months, a product evolved. That's the other thing, that if you have an idea, you can expect it to evolve. Because if you have an idea, try making one. I mean, supposing you had an idea for a new type of comb, and there is actually a list. There's a list of ideas. Dragon's Den, here we are. These are inventions that beat TV's Dragon's Den. A hard plastic ride-on suitcase for children. A chocolate orange wine-based liqueur. An apron that doubles as a cosy baby towel. A clever beach bag that opens up into a towel. A device for detangling hair. There you are. I don't know why, I don't know see what that looks like, but you know, people in washing their hair, they've got long hair, it gets all tangled up, it's painful. A device for detangling hair, fantastic. Jamaican style table saws, a plastic wedge that stops tables wobbling. Do you remember that? That was quite famous for wobbling. And in fact the bloke, they laughed him out at the show, and the bloke went on the internet and he sold 1 million of them over the internet, made £1 million because he had the publicity. People went looking for it. Innovative board game, an electronic bear that can read bedtime stories, a treadmill for dogs, and this is particularly used for the rehabilitation of poorly animals and by dog training. So, those are all ideas that Dragon's Den apparently, I think they did go for some of those, but most of them they didn't go for. And they all made money, big money, for the people who came up with them. So look, there's no end to the invention. It's just a matter of having the willpower and the discipline to just keep writing down ideas everywhere you go. Some of you are in city jobs, which I've done that sort of thing. It can be a bit stultifying to the brain cells. You know, you get into one mental track, you know, writing reports of this, writing reports of that. You know, maybe not the best environment to come up with ideas. I don't know, maybe you need to go out to the park and watch pigeons, you know, something for shooting pigeons, maybe. There can be anything, you know, anything. But a new idea that could be fun, even if it's absolutely useless, like this thing here. Look, I told you before, this is useless, okay? It is absolutely useless, but it's fun. It's fun, you see. You're pitting your wits against a very, very fast insect with reflexes, 400th of a second. How can you possibly beat that, you see? So, you know, you have to come up with your own strategies to make it work. But that's fun. So it's either useful, fun, which saves you time. So anyway, that's all I was really going to say about DIY. But now the last bit I'm going to talk to you about is China. And I started talking to you nearly 45 minutes ago. So I think we can spend about 15 minutes on China, 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll sort of, you know, degenerate into drinking downstairs, I think. China. Well, I can just throw out random facts about China that might help if you're thinking of going down there to meet some factories. Now, I can tell you the factories I've been dealing with. There's a factory called Star Prototypes. It's on the internet, Star Prototypes, Gordon Stiles. Now, that is 100% owned by an Englishman, and I chose the factory not because I thought it would be the cheapest factory in China, because it isn't, but because I can communicate with them. You have a better rapport with an English person than somebody, and language, I can tell you, is a real problem in China and in Hong Kong too. If you catch a taxi in Hong Kong or China, make sure you've got your destination written out on a piece of paper in Chinese, right? And keep it. So you stick them all on a sheet of paper and keep it in your suitcase. Every time you go abroad, take it with you, because, you know, otherwise you're going to end up, you know, I don't know where. So, language is a problem. Moulding costs I've already told you about. They're about a quarter to a third of the UK price for injection moulds. And there's two phases to injection moulding, because what happens when you go to a prototyping company like Star, typically what happens is this. They'll say, well, we don't do the designing bit, we just do the prototyping. So you've got to go to a designer. Fair enough. So what I did, I went to the one that they recommend was, now this is a company called Detect Design. The note takers, Detect Design with a K. D-E-T-E-K-T in Hong Kong. Owned by an Australian, very efficient. They will take you through the stages of sprucing up your object, whatever it is, and they will stylize it for you. They stylize mine fantastically. They made it look wonderful. And then they will create a file with a program called SolidWorks, or something like SolidWorks, where there's an electronic three-dimensional file, an image, which can go straight into a prototyping machine. So that phase cost about $4,000. $4,000. The file goes from Detect to Star. I'm just telling you this is the way it worked for me. And then the price for the prototype, in my case, was $1,200. So for about $3,000 to $3,500, you could create a beautifully styled object, maybe something that you could hold in your hand, that could be made, and then you've got something you can show it to the trade. You can go around and show, under confidentiality, you can show it to people, perhaps potential partners, perhaps potential distributors. So those are the costs. Now, if you go down to China, typical fare, British Airways, about 750 quid return. If you go to Hong Kong, then you'll catch a boat to the mainland. You will need hotels, anything from 15 quid to 65, 70 quid or more a night, depending on whether you want economy or not. I went to a city called Zhongshan. And Zhongshan is about 40 miles west across the other side of the Pearl Delta from Hong Kong. And it's a very attractive, largely modernised city. It's got some grotty corners, of course. It's very big, several million people living there. But that is where the Star factory is, and there's a lot of other factories there too. King Century Hotel, was one I used in the centre, but you can get advice from the factories. Will advise you where they like meeting up. Visas. You'll need a visa if you go to China. You don't need a visa for Hong Kong. China charged £260 for a 12-month multi-entry visa. And they have a place in Holborn where you go, always make an appointment first on the internet, otherwise they'll turn you away. You will need an invitation letter, and the factory will give you an invitation letter. Make sure your passport number is on it. Also, if you want a multi-entry visa, the letter needs to say something like, this client is attempting a rather complex development phase and will need multiple visits to the factory, something like that. So then you'll get your multiple entry visa, and it's just a stamp which they stamp on your passport. Your idea will be stolen in China. If you come up with something good, they'll steal it. But they probably won't export it, because the situation used to be that most stuff has to go through Hong Kong, and it is possible for it to be intercepted there. So the general word on the street in China is that if you're doing big production runs, it's assumed you're successful, therefore your idea will be pitched. It will be copied and distributed in China. And I don't know much about Chinese distribution. If you've seen any of the stuff on the internet, Barnes Miller's were looking at on the internet, Barnes Miller, write that down. You will learn about Chinese distribution. And it's all, wheels within wheels, probably a bit like Japan. Lots of little middlemen involved, and if you're a foreigner, you might not get a look at it. So don't necessarily assume that because your product is popular here and the Chinese people want it, that you can make any money selling it, because they've got it all stitched up over there. There he goes. Now there's a company called Easy IMEX. Easy IMEX. It's Australian. They like the word easy. Australian. Easy IMEX. And it's run by Australians. And what they do, and there's several companies doing this, they will oversee the production and dispatch and the paperwork involved in having your products, whether they've been made, coming out of the factory, going onto a boat and arriving in England. They will arrange for your product to go into a container, a shared container with probably some of their other clients' goods. So if you're only ordering a pallet, maybe something this size worth of your goods, that's fine, goes in the container. They can arrange to do an inspection, so that before it leaves the factory, they will inspect the goods to make sure they'll open the boxes. They'll go, I want that one at the bottom, come on, get the one. They'll force them to get the one out from the bottom, open it up, make sure that the labels are all on straight, everything like that. So Easy IMEX can do all of that for you, and they've got a few YouTube films that you can look at. They would charge you a joining fee up to 200 quid or less than 200 quid to join them. It's a lifetime joining fee, and then every time you have goods sent across, they will charge you 2 or 3%, something like that, of the value of those goods as a fee. And if you want an inspection, they might charge you a little bit more, but not much. So I reckon what they're offering is pretty good. And when I start bringing stuff over, I'll probably use Easy IMEX. So I told you about all the companies I met. I do know an electronics chap there who's got a factory making electronic circuit boards. So I know him quite well. He also owns 2 bars. And if you go out drinking with him, you will be required to drink from the Cobra bottle, which is about this big, has a dead cobra in it, and a clear liquid, and he will pour you several of those. And if you don't drink them, he'll probably be very upset, but he is Canadian. So, colourful personalities that you'll meet in the expat community over there in the bars. Lots of people who are willing to give you free advice, and possibly people who have manufacturing capabilities as well. So those were most of the things I was going to tell you about China, and I'm just going through to see if I've left out anything important. Yeah, one other point. Avoid the new year. If you're going to deal in China, they have the new year is at the end of January. And what happens is that the place shuts down for about 2 weeks. Don't get caught with that unless you want to go backpacking or something. If you want to do business, you won't do any business in the last week of January, or probably the first week of February. So avoid the Chinese New Year. The other thing is the airfares on British Airways, and presumably everybody else, they jump at the beginning of December. So if you're going to plan a trip to China, probably November or October are good months to go, because you know the fares won't be too bad, you won't have any problem with the Chinese New Year. So just bear that in mind. So I think that on China, I've told you pretty well everything I know. I would just, so then I think I'll just end on this note that actually Einstein had a little saying about failure, and it's this. He said, success is not final, failure is not fatal, it is the courage the courage to continue that counts. Well, for me, it would take more courage to go work for somebody in the city, actually, than to carry on doing what I'm doing. You know, it's such good fun. It's more fun than anything else. And if you are stuck in a boring city job, if you can scratch together a spare 20,000, 30,000 pounds, consider pursuing an adventure. If you can still make it while you're working, you can be filing away in your bedroom at 10 o'clock at night with bits of wood and balsa wood and glue, making your invention before you leave your job. So you do as much preparation as you can for creating your invention.